Starting your day off with a take on Vegas you won't get anywhere else.
Hi, I'm Holly Madison.
Hi, this is William Shatner.
It is Larry the Cable Guy, and I listen. Why? Because I'm a good American. So is he. And if you don't listen to him, you need to pack up and leave this country.
This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
Come on, guys!
What's up, everybody? It is Monday. Back at you on the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. That's right, your boy Shapiro is back. I know you all missed me very badly. Boy, do we have a lot to get to today. And it's Monday, and that means Chris Wynn is back in studio. Chris, thank you very much for filling in for me Friday. You did an excellent job.
We had a good time, Brian. JD, good to see you as well. Hope you guys had a good weekend. I don't know if we're at liberty, though, to discuss the reasoning behind Brian Shapiro's absence on Friday, JD. Do you think that's something that maybe kind of bounce around a little bit? Maybe not.
At some point in the future, maybe I will bring that up. But not today. Speaking of today.
All I know is if it was me, it would have absolutely been brought up already.
Oh, 100%. There's not even a doubt.
Not just 100%, Chris. It's 1,000%
You
true.
are absolutely on point with that claim right there.
People could call up and guess if they want to.
But I'm taking the high road.
Well, nobody really cares. Let's actually get to what we're doing on the show today, and there's a lot to get to. So Republican presidential candidate Joe Walsh will be joining us in hour number 2. Oh, boy, do we have a lot to get to with him. He actually just made an appearance, Bill Maher, over the weekend. It was good. Going to talk a little bit, about the Taliban. Is Donald Trump trying to make friends with the Taliban? He invited them to Camp David, supposedly. This is an unbelievable story. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a few minutes as well. By the way, Kellyanne Conway's husband, informally advising the Joe Walsh campaign. We're going to ask him about that a little bit. Oh, do we have a lot of sports to get to? Besides it being NFL Week 1, a lot of storylines to get to there. The Antonio Brown saga, well, he finally landed somewhere, and no, he left the Raiders. We'll explain that coming up here in just a little bit as well. Kawhi Leonard's sister killing an elderly woman at a casino. This is a really bizarre story. We'll get to that. All the stories coming up here in just a little bit. However, I want to start with this. Had a fun weekend, went to a concert, and on Saturday, we've been talking about it for weeks now, the one game on the UNLV football schedule, and yes, folks, I'm leading with UNLV football. The one game that you looked at your schedule, you said that they had to win, was the Arkansas State game, at least in my opinion. And we have Tony Sanchez on every week, and I want to start out by saying this. I think Tony Sanchez is a good guy. I say this all the time. I root for him. He's an easy guy to root for. He's a likable guy. He's great with the media. But I said, and pretty much Francois said it, the UNLV athletic director, he has to pretty much make a bowl game, in order to keep his job. And this was a game that you marked on your schedule on Saturday night, Arkansas State, a game that UNLV absolutely had to win, make no mistake about it. I have never heard so many boos at Sam Boyd Stadium in the 20 years I've been here than I did on Saturday night. UNLV absolutely got blasted by Arkansas State at home. And, now they're 1-1, and you could be saying to yourself, well, Brian, it's only 2 weeks into the season. It's only 2 games. When you look at the rest of their schedule, please find me 5 other games on the schedule that you think UNLV is going to win, besides the fact they were awful on both sides of the football. They were terrible. Armani Rogers, UNLV's starting quarterback, might not be a starter in 2 or 3 weeks down the road. I don't know. He cannot throw the ball with any type of accuracy. We've said it before, saying it again. He couldn't even complete a basic 5-yard pass, let alone anything down the field. The bottom line is Armani Rogers is not a good quarterback, and if he faces any type of defense that is good against the run, he has no chance. Now, with that being said, and again, there's coaches at UNLV in the past, I'll just flat out say it, Marvin Menzies. I was not a Marvin Menzies fan, not just as a basketball coach, but as a human being, and I have no problem saying that, and I could give my reasons for it both publicly and privately. I did not like Marvin Menzies. Difficult guy to root for a number of different reasons. I root for Tony Sanchez. I think he's a good guy. He's a great guy. He's great with the media. He was the wrong guy for this job. And listen, I hope I have egg on my face. I hope at the end of the year he wins 6 or 7 games. I hope I'm wrong. But in year 5, you cannot lose the way that they lost on Saturday night against Arkansas State. And to me, it was a defining moment. He had to win that game Saturday night. It had to be a W. Make no mistake about it. And Arkansas State just blew them to smithereens. They embarrassed UNLV on their home field. And in year 5, Sanchez even admitted it after game, said it was completely inexcusable. Well, guess what? A big problem here is the Fertittas. And you could say to yourself, well, the Fertittas, if you don't know who they are billionaires. They have boatloads of money, right? They sold the UFC. And they're donors of UNLV. And you could say, well, isn't that a good thing, Brian? No, it's not a good thing, because you could donate $100 million to the football program, but if you don't have the right coaching staff in place, and as you know, the Fertittas are also donors of Bishop Gorman. That's how they know Tony Sanchez and developed a relationship with him. And they basically gave an ultimatum to UNLV last year that if you let Tony Sanchez go, we're going to cut off funding. So in turn, what does that do for the UNLV program? Like I said, you could donate $100 million to the UNLV athletic department. But if you don't have the right coaching staff in place, it is going to hurt the program long term. And that is exactly what the Fertittas have done. Make no mistake about it. And I've said it with the basketball program. I've disagreed with the decision-making that the UNLV athletic department has made over the course of the last 15 years. Ever since they got rid of I shouldn't say they got rid of Lon Kruger, ever since they decided not to pay Lon Kruger the money that he deserved. They got rid of Lon Kruger. They hired a basketball coach in Dave Rice that had never been a head college basketball coach before. They hired Menzies. That was a disaster. And then I look at the football program, whether it's Bobby Houck or Coach Sanford, they haven't hired the right coaches for the job. And now you hire a guy 4 years ago that is a high school football coach. Make no mistake about it. He won a lot of games. He also had some of the best talent in the country. He had never coached a day in his life at the college level. And are we surprised in year 5 he has yet to make a bowl game? And it certainly looks like after Saturday, gentlemen, he's not going to be making a bowl game again. I don't see it happening, guys. Am I wrong on this? To critique Tony Sanchez on this and the coaching staff in UNLV, it was an embarrassment Saturday night.
Well, here's the thing. In college football, you want to start the season off on a positive note, and that's exactly what they did. They beat an inferior program, right, a week ago. So you expect to continue to build on something like that. What transpired on Saturday night was nothing close to that. What happened was they were down by over 30 points at halftime to a program in Arkansas State. I'm not talking about the Florida Gators. I'm not talking about the Arkansas Razorbacks. I'm not even talking about the UCLA Bruins or a team on the West Coast that is actually credible. I'm talking about Arkansas State. And that is not an indication that your program is going in the right direction. When you have a program like UNLV that's trying to ascend back to respectability, what you want to do is you want to build on things. You want to improve. You want to show signs that things are getting better. Okay? You want to progress. And that's not what we saw on Saturday. And I think a lot of fans are disheartened. A lot of fans are upset. Look, do we expect UNLV as a football program to be on par with a Pac-12 program or on par with, a Big 12 program or an SEC program? No. Absolutely not. But we expect there to be a certain standard, and the standard just isn't being met. And you talked about what we think of Tony Sanchez as a person. Absolutely. Tony's a great guy, right? And he's someone, and I don't doubt that he, as much as anybody here in this town, wants this program to get back to being successful. But the standard's just not there.
No.
There's not a expectation that they can get back to where they need to be on a level as they get set to move into a beautiful brand new stadium next year and even have prospects for going to a bigger conference.
JD, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, Charles Williams actually had a decent day on the ground. He had 19 for 170, but Armani Rogers clearly is not the quarterback at this point. He is a tight end, in my opinion. He had 4 carries for about 17 yards. He was 8 for 23, which is about as bad as Kyler Murray was in the first half of the game against Chris Wynn's Detroit Lions yesterday. I think you have to put Armani Rogers at tight end, make Oblad the starting quarterback, and move forward from there. I don't necessarily think that they're totally out of bowl contention, but one thing that really kind of scares me a little bit is that they gave up 6 sacks to this Arkansas State defense, and that UNLV offensive line is touted as one of the best in the Sanchez era, which isn't a long era. But, as you stated, Chris, Tony Sanchez is a great guy, but this is an NFL stadium you're going to be playing in next year.
Yes.
So let me, by the way, I don't disagree with what you said. Here's my solution to this. I'm not the coach, but you guys tell me if you agree or disagree with this. Now, there are some writers in town and some members of the media that say, well, you can't not start Armani Rogers. He gives UNLV the best chance to win the game. Well, maybe that's right, but here's what I would do to – and by the way, after the game, Tony Sanchez, you talked about Oblad, who is UNLV's backup quarterback. He played a couple minutes, and he accomplished more in 2 or 3 minutes than Armani Rogers did the entire game. He threw for a touchdown. But with that being said, here's what I think should be done. And after the game, Sanchez said, yeah, we do have kind of a quarterback controversy. I think you should start Oblad in a game that you're most likely going to lose anyway this coming weekend.
They're 17-point underdogs on the road at Northwestern.
So here's what I would do. Start him to just make a point, make an example that Armani Rogers' performance is not acceptable. If he goes 3 and out, maybe the first drive or even maybe the second drive, you want to put him out there for another drive. If he accomplishes nothing in the first few drives, then put Armani back in there. But it sets a precedence.
It's not going to kill you because Northwestern's not great offensively this year.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't score or do anything for the first 3 drives, they're probably only down 7-0 at that point.
But it sets the tone.
I completely agree with that.
It sets the tone. It sets an example. And you're saying to Armani Rogers, you cannot put up another performance like this again. You can't do it.
I was actually wrong. It was 17 carries for 4 yards. He had a total of about 60 yards of offense as a quarterback.
He's terrible.
I mean, that's unbelievably bad. Now, he can catch the ball. He's 6'5", 230. Their tight end is very, very questionable. Make Armani Rogers the tight end. It's a very simple solution. And I think he's got a better NFL future there, too, than he does at quarterback, clearly.
So, guys, let me play devil's advocate for you a little bit here because given this is Overreaction Monday, right? And it is one football game.
Well, it's not one football game.
What your thoughts? No, I mean, let me lay this out, okay? The coaching staff has dealt with the offense all through training camp and for the first 2 games of the season, and it's one game. I'm not necessarily on board with the just chuck out Rodgers as the quarterback.
It's not what I said
yet.
It's not what I said.
So you said start Oblat in the
just
game
because I say start Oblat doesn't mean he's going to play the whole game.
If one series he lays an egg, then you're going back to the quarterback that you pulled to start the 3rd game of the season.
Chris, this is about setting a tone and saying we will not tolerate this type of play. We've seen it from him before. And it was a horrible performance. It's not like I'm saying now listen, maybe Oblad gets in there and he does something good.
Brian, JG just said get rid of him as a quarterback, said start at tight end.
I didn't say that. I'm
addressing both you guys. I'm not just talking about what you said as far as your plan on game 3 coming up on Saturday.
That's an extreme.
I'm just pointing out that look, there's a method to the madness, right? The coaches have seen these. Maybe the coaches believe Armani Rogers is the best way for them to win.
Well, not according to what Tony Sanchez said after the game.
Okay, well,
he is. We've had him on the show several times after bad games, and he's always said Armani Rogers is our quarterback. If he actually said
not what he said after the game, I'll tell you what he said after the game.
That's making my point.
Then something has changed
after the game. Okay, he was asked about the quarterback situation, and he said we need to address this with our coaches. And I believe I'm paraphrasing here, but I believe he said there needs to be some sort of competition, at the quarterback position. Now, again, when I say Oblad should start, I'm not saying he should play the entire game. Now, listen, maybe he does something great if he starts. Then you keep him in there. But I'm saying if he can't do anything in the first couple drives, even the first drive, then put Armani in there. But here's what that does. And I'm talking from a coach's perspective and a player's perspective. It sends the message to Armani, not in practice, not chewing out a gun in practice. It sends him a message while he's on the sidelines, what it feels like to not be out there, number 1. Number 2, it also sends a message to Oblad saying, okay, young man, here's your opportunity. Okay, and then when Armani gets in there, I think he's going to have focus.
I would disagree with you, Brian. This is why. JD, I need to get your input on this, being the handicapper on the show and someone who follows college football much more closely than both of us do. What does that do for a guy's confidence when you're going to put?
He agrees with me.
No, I'm asking the question. What does that do if you put Oblad out there against a Northwestern Wildcat team on the road in the Big Ten? Okay, in a game that they're not probably going to win. And Brian's talking about having success on the first drive or the first quarter against a team that they're not, out of all probability, going to have success against.
Well, that's actually a pretty common practice. And I wouldn't do the first drive. I would do probably the first 3 drives.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, Armani Rogers, and one of the reasons why I think Sanchez said what he said, 17 carries for 4 yards is unbelievably bad.
Yes.
And then with Charles Williams actually playing pretty well, there's no reason for him to be a quarterback anymore. He has no shot at the NFL. That's abundantly clear. But he runs a 4.5. He's 6'5", 230. He's got good hands. He could be a weapon at tight end, along with all the other senior wide receivers that are on the team and the good offensive line.
And listen, guys, we're forgetting something here, or maybe we're not, but we didn't mention it. UNLV is going to be playing football in a pretty big stadium next year. Okay, how many people are going to show up in that arena next year if they win 3 or 4 games this year?
5,000 max.
It's going to be pathetic.
It's going to be national embarrassing.
Yeah. So listen, there's a lot of factors that go into this.
There's going to be a meme that hits Twitter, and it's going to go viral. It'll be the first thing to go viral for UNLV football in the history of UNLV football, and it'll be just because the stadium is 1/15 full.
There's a lot of factors that go into this. And I mentioned the Fertittas, and I'm sure they're very nice people. I don't know any of them personally. They certainly have a lot of money. Yeah, it's a nice gesture when you want to donate money to any organization like UNLV or any charity. I applaud them for that. But they are hurting the program. And what I mean by that is you can pump in all this money towards facilities, but it is not going to win you football games if you have the wrong coaching staff in place. There is no question about it, and anyone who would deny this is a moron. You cannot tell me that the Fertittas are not the main reason why Tony Sanchez is still the UNLV football coach right now. And I'm telling you right now, that loss yesterday is... I don't know. I don't know exactly, how this rest of the season is going to shape out. It is a terrible loss. Could they come back from it? I suppose it's possible. Could they shock the world and win this weekend? I suppose it's possible, but highly unlikely. So we're going to have to wait and see how this thing takes shape here. But I'm going to tell you right now, I said it last week, and I'll say it now again. I believe that the game on Saturday against Arkansas State was going to be dictate how the rest of the season goes. I said if they won that game on Saturday, I think they're going to make a bowl game.
It was supposed to be a W, Brian, in the win column for the schedule. You looked at the schedule, played the schedule game at the beginning of the year. That was one of the games that was going to get them to the 6 wins or more to get to a bowl game. And of course, we saw the result. They don't have it, and we'll see what happens now the rest of the way.
We'll see what happens. That's Chris Wynn, J.D. Sharp across from me. I'm Brian Shapiro. It is the Vegas Take. When we come back, we are going to be talking a little bit about the Taliban and Donald Trump inviting them to Camp David. Am I in the twilight zone? Is this really happening? We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, K-Dawn. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. It's Monday. That means Chris Wynn in studio as well. Presidential candidate on the Republican side going against Donald Trump. Joe Walsh will be joining us coming up here in hour number 2. Speaking of presidents, Donald Trump made a decision to hold a meeting in Washington with Taliban leaders, and it gets even worse. He allegedly invited these Taliban leaders to Camp David. Now, John Bolton did not agree with the President of the United States. In fact, he was vehemently against it, according to reports. But including Vice President Mike Pence, who also made the case against a meeting at Camp David, a location that none other than Donald Trump suggested. Make no mistake about it, the Taliban, just like Al-Qaeda or this is a terrorist organization that kills innocent people. Now, the argument from Pompeo and Donald Trump is basically, listen, we're trying to, make means here to end the fighting, end the war, end the innocent lives. Inviting a terrorist organization to Camp David? Has Donald Trump lost his mind? I think the answer is yes at this point. I'm sorry, I just don't understand it. Among the concerns of administration officials who opposed the meeting was that it might take place around the anniversary of 9/11. Keep in mind that anniversary is Wednesday, when 4,000 people died. Officials and people familiar with the matter saying that was one of the big issues, and Pence argued at one point that such a meeting could send the wrong message to members of the U.S. military who have fought and been killed by the Taliban for years. I mean, does anybody think in this administration, anybody? Can somebody just stand up and say, Mr. President, you are wrong? Does anybody have the guts to do that? It does appear that Bolton did that. It does appear. But it's insane to me. We got a couple minutes here and we got to take a break, and I want to take some phone calls on this at 257-5396, the GCI guys hotline, 702-257-5396. Can any Trump supporter defend Donald Trump inviting the Taliban to Camp David? JD, we only have about 90 seconds here, but can you defend this?
I can't defend the location, Brian, but I understand why he wants to stop the war. It would save the American public a lot of money because we're spending a lot of money over there every single year. But I cannot defend the particular location, why he would choose Camp David. I get trying to negotiate with the Taliban, and they're not Al-Qaeda, but they work very closely with Al-Qaeda, clearly, and that he would like that to stop. But again, the location of Camp David, now granted, it is a secret place, but that's one of the most sacred locations for someone in power in the United States of America, and has been for a long time. I'm not sure that someone from the Taliban should be there.
And Donald Trump brings this up, Chris, basically within days of the anniversary of 9/11. Now, I want to give you ample time to respond. I got to take a break.
Wait on the other side of the break.
Yeah, yep. I want to give you plenty of time to respond on this, and I also want to give you, the callers, a chance to chime in on this. What do you think about Donald Trump suggesting and inviting the Taliban to go to Camp David this week? The Taliban, folks. That's what I just said. No, I'm not talking about, inviting Kanye West to Camp David. We're talking about the Taliban. Although one could argue, inviting Kanye West, might be just as bad. Sorry, that was a bad joke. But anyway, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. Give us a buzz, 257-5396, the number to call if you want to chime in on this, 702-257-5396. We'll get right to calls on the other side of the break. You are listening to The Vegas Take on KDWN.